I'm Remy. I'm a singer, songwriter, and producer. I don't normally make content about the songwriting part of it. Mostly this channel is about production, which is interesting because I, for a very long time, thought of myself as a songwriter and not a producer. I went to music school for composition before I went to music school for production. In a lot of ways, I'm almost more of a songwriter. At least when I approach my productions, it's still from a very songwriter perspective. So I thought this week I'd make a video on a more songwritery topic, which is lyrics. I'm gonna be very clear, this isn't how to write lyrics, it's just a series of tools, because there is no how to write lyrics. Anyone that tells you there is lying to you for views. But here's like a few things that maybe can get you out of the funk or have you approach lyrics in a different way. But of course, as I say in most videos, and this is true in anything music, and anything artistic, and maybe anything in life, nothing will beat practice. There's nothing I can say in this video that'll be more valuable than you sitting down and writing a song. Even if it's a bad one, that's just one bad song closer to a good song. Also, I've been doing this sort of challenge where I try to make a song every week and share it on SoundCloud and here on YouTube. So I'll be using this week's song as examples for like all the lyric stuff we're about to talk about. Number one, the two types of lyricists. There's overall two kinds of approaches to lyricism. You have the very narrative writers, think the Taylor Swifts of this world that are like very much in the vein of telling a story. We have love story and it's really like, we were both young when I first saw you, and it's an anecdote. And then you have writers more like Lady Gaga who are much more visual, like flashes of imagery. Hey there sugar babies, how you tricycle pop show, you taste just like glitter mixed with rock and roll. Obviously, most lyricists are a mix of both, and something that helped me a lot was realizing that I was trying to write narratively in the beginning, and I hadn't really explored the visual. Once I started to, it actually got a lot easier. So if you're stuck, maybe it's worth it to try the opposite approach and look at what kind of lyricists the artists that you're modeling yourself after are. Or even within a single song, sometimes it can be helpful to, okay, I've kind of been telling the story the whole time, maybe let me try to paint a picture, get some more like vibe-related lines, or vice versa. Number two, starting with a theme. Now, I don't always do this, but this time I happened to go with a theme, and the theme can be anything. If you're more of a narrative writer, maybe that theme will be narrative, it'll be like the story. Okay, I'm gonna write about a breakup, you know? I'm a little more on the visual side, as I mentioned, so my theme was like balloons. Balloons are fun. There's a lot you can say about balloons. I like starting with those really like simple, very visual things, but again, your starting point can be like tailored to whatever kind of lyricist you're trying to be in the moment. And once you have a theme, the next logical step is to do a little brainstorm around that theme. This was my brainstorm, and it's literally just trying to write phrases, ideas, concepts that you feel relate to that topic, trying to milk that topic for whatever it's worth. So I have burst your bubble, that one's pretty obvious. Pop is a great word. I also love how like percussive it is of a word. Hot air balloon, I didn't end up using that, but you know, it's a balloon. Floating higher, gas me up, also didn't end up using that one. Stretched thin, you know, rubber, you stretch it, it stretches, it gets thin. Blowing smoke up my ass, I thought that was really funny because, you know, you blow air into a balloon's ass so that it gets big. And I was like, that's a thing that happens to people too. And shouldn't play with sharp things, parentheses tongue. So I was like, oh, that would be fun, like, you shouldn't play with sharp things around a balloon. And then tongues can be sharp, you know, like someone with a sharp tongue, someone very witty. Those were my starting concepts. Some of them made it into the song, some of them didn't. It's a good way to like warm up and just know kind of vocabulary that you're going to be moving forward. Point number three is start with your main character. But basically, you wouldn't start producing a play by making the set design. You would start with the story. You would start it with the main character, possibly, or what the story is going to be about. Now, there's exceptions to this. For example, a story like Backrooms. There, the main character is kind of the Backrooms, and maybe that is where you would start. So the main character isn't always a character. It's just whatever the most important thing of your piece is. And it's really genre dependent, it's really artist dependent. Oftentimes for pop, it's the chorus or the hook. In hip hop, it's more likely to be the beat. For country, it's more likely to be the story. So whatever the focus of your song is, start there. Build everything around the highlight. Something I found really useful when I started writing, I would listen to my favorite songs and kind of ask myself, where did they start? What was probably the first thing that was laid down? Even if you're wrong, I am a pop girly, as I mentioned. So for me, it's often the chorus or the hook. It's often like vocal hooks. So my starting point was just right off the bat, pre-chorus into chorus. In my case, I didn't even know what the song was about until after I wrote the chorus, and then read it back and said, okay, what story is this? How can I make the verses and everything else around it coherent? Number 4, sonic writing. A lot of times it can be really helpful to think about how you want the phrase to sound instead of worrying about what it means first. That's like the Swedish school of writing. Like, I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. It doesn't really mean much. They allegedly even wrote a version of the song that did mean something because everyone was like, wait a minute, this song doesn't actually mean anything. We don't really know what it's about. They made a version that had meaning and it was worse because the sound is the most important thing. That's obviously very genre specific. If you're in a much more folksy vein, the meaning is of course going to be very important. You have a lot of wisdom because you are yourself a music listener. So there's moments where you're thinking as a music listener and you know as a listener what you want to hear, and that's the smartest you'll be as a writer is when you're not really in the position of a writer. So really trust the moments where that part of you shines through. So verse 1, I knew I wanted to be like 16th notes, you know, like the pattern kind of immediately came along with the phrase, I've got a feeling it's too late to say this. Also in the vein of sonic writing, alliteration is a really fun tool. You probably know, but alliteration is like a literary technique where you have like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, just repeating a single consonant on the start of multiple words. It's a nice way to like stretch your mind to use words in your vocabulary that you don't often think of putting in a song once you give yourself like a guiding light, which is what I did with like the second line of the verse. So I was like, I want it to be very percussive, very like pump and like very bouncy. Like, okay, words that start with P. Pompous, probably presumptuous. So that's how I ended up with.
But I see the pictures you're posting with pompous friends in the Hamptons, and this is probably presumptuous, but I bet you miss me now.
Number 5, and my favorite, wordplay. I love wordplay. I love wordplay so much. I'm a major clueser. I love puzzles. I'm a cryptic fiend. I love a cryptic crossword clue. Wordplay can be so fun. And all you really have to do is just ask yourself, how many things can a word mean? And see how you can like layer in the meanings in different ways. A pro tip is don't be afraid to reverse engineer. So verse 2, I was like, what other balloon words do I got? Inflatable, right? And then I was like, what can inflatable be outside of just the context of balloons? Well, egos are inflatable, right? Like an inflated ego. And then you reverse engineer it, right? So it was like, I knew I wanted that second line to end in inflatable, I needed a rhyme, debatable, and then everything literally worked backwards. You can actually see there's like a space before inflatable because I literally wrote it before I wrote like the rest of the line.
One might argue that your actions were debatable. I love you, babe, but boy, your ego is inflatable. You.
Also the sharp things that I mentioned earlier, you know, playing with sharp things in the context of a balloon is like scissors and razors. What's playing with sharp things like in the context of a relationship? What can be sharp in an interpersonal setting? So someone's tongue.
Let me put my tongue inside your mouth that comes with strings. That should teach you that you shouldn't play with sharp things.
Actually, I didn't even like think about strings being like the string of a balloon until Tristan pointed it out. He's like, oh, string, like the string of a balloon. I was like, yes, that's exactly, totally why I put that in there. I'd worked in all those kind of childish metaphors in the chorus, you know, like a kid who watched their ice cream drop. So I was thinking balloons, rubber, I'm rubber, you're glue, you know? What is rubber like? What is glue like? And what does that mean? Maybe in a relationship, you played them well, you were rubber, I was glue. I stretched your patience thin. Stretching, like what can be stretchy is like patience. And now I'm stuck here crying without you. And number 6 is maybe a little more technical. Respect emphasis. Or don't, honestly. Do whatever you want. So it's kind of like a rule of writing. You normally want the way that the words are sung to align with the way that you would speak them as much as possible. Obviously it's hard and you're like wrestling metric and melody and all these other factors. But a good way to get there is like squeezing in transitional words. For example, the phrase, these childish games, you played them well. Old habits, I can't quit these childish games, but I had to squeeze but you at the end of games. Because the emphasis, I wanted it to be on played. I didn't want it to be, you played them well. And that just sounds odd, I think, within that context. That's how I ended up with.
I know that's a shitty way to take the blame, I guess. Old habits, I get with the childish games, but you played them all, yeah, you were rubber, I was glue, it's just your patience, and now I'm stuck here crying without you.
Another thing to figure out how I had to sing the lyrics, I kind of penned them out first. I literally underlined, and you can see underlined the words, like where the kind of emphasis of the downbeat had to be. So I know that's a shitty way to take the blame, I guess. Old habits, I think, with these childish games, but you played them all, yeah, you were rubber eyes, so I stretch your patience thin, I'm sick here crying without you. But also, you know, don't follow the rules if you don't want to. The rules are there for you to break. All of them are. None of these are rules, they're just tools. But lots of people break these rules all the time. Someone really successful at breaking this rule specifically is Sabrina Carpenter, right? I think it's almost like part of her writing style at this point to disrespect emphasis. She really wipes her ass with emphasis, and we love her for it. Like, the songs still work, and it's to the point where I almost feel like it's part of her sonic signature. Now I hear those lyrics and I'm like, oh, that's very Sabrina coded. We got House Tour, and I promise none of this is a metaphor. And it could have easily been like, and I promise none of this is a metaphor. But she chose not to. And I kind of get why. She also probably wanted to mimic the phrasing of the previous line for nonsense. This song catchier than chicken pox is catchier instead of catchier than chicken pox instead of chicken pox. Let Sabrina be a lesson to us all that there's no rules. If you like how it sounds and other people are moved by it too, that is all that matters. Don't be afraid to make lyrics that are maybe wrong or stupid. Lord knows I've done so many that I know probably sound incredibly dumb to a lot of people, but they give me a chuckle. And I figure if they give me a chuckle, they'll give at least one other person in this world a chuckle. And that's all that matters. Thank you for sticking around. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked and want to subscribe. I'll be posting videos weekly on, again, this song challenge that I'm doing. There will be a new song every week, and there will be some kind of video to go with that song. Every week it'll be a little different. Last week we were talking about the 4 pillars of pop. Pretty neat video if you want to go check it out. This week we're talking about lyrics. Who knows what we'll be talking about next week? It could be anything. The song is on SoundCloud, song we've been discussing. It's on SoundCloud, it's on YouTube, and it's called Love Balloon. So go check it out if you liked the little clips that you heard here. Bye!